Okay, time to take a look at the HUPEJOS dash cam. So we got our instructions. Oh, this is cool. So we got two of these, and these are static peels that are going to stick onto the window. So that way you can stick this on, stick the dash cam onto that, and then if you ever need to remove it, you can just pull that off. And I've used these before, and these actually work really well. Okay, wowee. So this is quite the system. This is going to sit on the windshield, and we got that 3M on here again, so that's going to stick very well. And then depending on the angle, you can move this camera up and down to accommodate it. Oh, that's cool. So you can actually take the whole camera off. On the other side, we got two more cameras. So we got one on the right, one on the left. So these can move up and down. You can point them directly back to the cab. They can also point out. So you can have them pointing straight forward, piers. You can have them pointing out to the side windows. Pretty much whatever the heck you want. So anything that this front camera doesn't cover, you can get with these. Then we got our interface buttons on the bottom, power, left, right, menu, and OK. On the top we got our power input. We got what looks like an SD card already installed. Oh, that's cool. Actually has a Lexar 128 gigabytes, so that's a very nice card. Then we have what looks like the microphone, reset, and then the rear camera. So here is the rear camera. It's a much nicer looking rear camera than I normally see. And again, this can swivel all the way up and down. And we got a spot for the sticky adhesive. And it actually comes with two of them. We got a nice long cord here, and it looks like it can disconnect. Whenever we're stringing this through, if the camera's gonna get in the way, we can just string the wire without the camera. And then here's the plug that connects to the main unit. So it looks like we have an option for temporary power. So if we just wanna get this thing running right away, we don't wanna have to worry about it, we can plug this into the camera. And then we can drop this right into the cigarette lighter outlet. So this is cool. If we don't want to use that adhesive, we can just stick this on. So it's just a simple suction cup. So we spin this. You can see it sucks that in, so it'll give you a nice good grab on the window. And here we got some adhesive clips. So if you're going to be running wire over the interior, then you can just use these. It'll make everything a little bit more tidy. And we've got this little pry bar. This is going to be for getting underneath the trim and prying that trim back. And because it's plastic, we don't have to worry about damaging that trim, but that's going to help us hide the wires if we want to route it that way. I'm going to be using another product by HUPEJOS. This is their hardwire kit, and this is a radar hardwire kit. So this is going to plug into the top of the camera, and that's going to provide you with radar. So what that means is that if somebody comes even near the car, it's going to start recording. So that'll plug into the camera. This will plug into the radar, and then we'll wire these into the car for power. Okay, so I started looking at installing this, and I ran into two problems. The first problem is that my fuses are a little bit different. So you can see there's a couple of different sizes of fuses. This is the size that this kit uses, right? So it's about that size. This is the size that my car uses. And the second problem I got is the same thing that most cars have, which is that the fuse box is only made for a certain number of fuses, and they don't have any extras. So what I'm going to use is this. This is called an add-a-fuse. If we look on top, we can see that there are two fuse holders, and this is going to connect to my car. And then I can use this to attach to these wires. I'm going to start off by just snipping these off right as close to that plug as I can, and then strip some of the insulation off. And these come with crimp connects, so all I got to do is stick this in and then crimp it down. Okay. Okay. So now we got two add-a-fuses. If we look very carefully there, it says this is a 15 amp, so we can put 15s in. Just to be safe, I'm going to use 10 amp fuses. What's great about these is I got that extra slot in there, so I can just take a fuse out of the fuse box, drop this in there, put that fuse in there, and then I'm good to go. So if you don't have room in your fuse box, these will make your life a lot easier. All right, so the first thing we want to do is figure out which one has constant power and which one has accessory power. So I got my multimeter on DC, and I'm just touching metal with the black probe. All right, so I got 12 volts right there. So I need to find an accessory that does not have power. Okay, right there. All right, so any right here will be fine for that. Okay, we got power there. Well, I guess we're going to use this one for our accessory power because I know that works the way that I want it. This one's the accessory power, so that's going to be our red colored wire. So the fuse I pulled out, I'm just going to stick that right there in the front. And this add-a-fuse actually does have two different circuits, so if this one pops, this one can still run. If this one pops, this one can still run. But you don't have to worry about sending power from this one to that one. So it's good to invest in a good add-a-fuse if you're going to be doing this route. Now the other thing is we want to make sure that we got power coming in from this pin and then going out this wire because we want to run through the fuse. Okay, So the top pin is the power, the bottom pin is the load. So we want power going in from the top and then coming out the bottom. Okay, so that's one. Now we gotta get our constant power. So, all right, we got power here and here. So I'm gonna use that 10. And because sometimes these can be inconsistent, I just want to check and make sure that the power is still coming in from the top, and it is. So again, we'll take that fuse that we just pulled out, and we'll put that in our add a fuse, and put that with the wire facing down. There we go. All right, so the last thing is we need to put the ground onto a screw, so I'm just going to use this screw right there. I'm just going to take this, stick it in there, and tighten it down. So at this point, it's a good idea to make sure that it works before we actually string the wire. Okay, cool. So it's actually supplying power. Now, if my battery runs down below, I think it's 11 volts, then it's going to automatically turn off, because this is supposed to protect the battery to make sure you can continue starting your car. As long as we have over 11 volts, this is going to be able to power on, and we're going to be able to actually record what's going on. Okay, so now it comes time for stringing it up into the pillar. So there's a couple ways to do this. We can just wrap it around the back. We can try to fold it underneath. What I usually do is I just pull the trim back, and you usually just do this with your fingers. There we go. It is worth keeping in mind with a lot of modern vehicles, they do actually have airbags in here, so if you're going to be working around this area, you want to be very careful. One of the reasons I don't like just sticking the wires in and just stuffing them in if they do have airbags is because you don't want those wires laying on top of the airbags. The airbags have to deploy, so if you're going to be doing this, it has to go behind the airbags. And if there are airbags here, you just want to exercise caution around those, because those are safety equipment on the car. So I'm going to use, this is called a glow rod, so this is just a flexible fiberglass rod, and I'm going to stuff that down the pillar, and just so you can see how I got that stuffed in there. Then on the bottom I can tape that wire on and I can pull it up. Okay. So at this point, if you did have airbags, you would want to put all this behind it, and you'd want to zip tie it up to these wires. The very first thing I want to do is I want to figure out where I want to actually mount the, not the dash cam, but the radar. I guess actually maybe the dash cam might be better to go first. So the dash cam is going to go on something like this. I don't want it in my direct view. Obviously this is going to go off to the side. So I'm going to start out by cleaning the windshield. I'm just using Windex for this. This is definitely something that's been past due on this windshield. So on these we got a side 1 and a side 2. The side 1 is going to go toward the window. And then we peel off side 2. And then take off the backing on the 3M adhesive, and I'm going to plug it in. I want this to be level when I apply it. So I'm going to check and make sure that this isn't crooked, and then I'm going to just stick that guy on. Okay, just like that. And then we can tilt the camera. That looks pretty good. For the radar, that is going to plug into that USB-C slot. We want the radar facing forward, we want the buttons facing us, and hopefully unobstructed. So I think right there might be good. So I'm going to use the other little sticky pad there. Yeah, I think I'll do that. So it'll be right behind the mirror, so it's not going to interfere with my vision. So just like that. Now this wire, we can flip that around either way. It's one of the nice things about USB-C. So I'm going to get that over the mirror and plug it in. So you can kind of see the setup right there. Now plug power into the radar. And if I turn that on, I wonder if I got a wave in front of it. There we go. Cool. Okay, so before we start stringing those wires, I'm going to start working on the dash cam so we can just put all these wires in all at once. And the reason I'm plugging this in, I want to test it, and I want to make sure that I know for sure which side is up, because I have installed these things and then found out that it was upside down. So, okay, so it does look like this is oriented up. So we got this on top. This is going to stick under the rear window, and we got this guy rotated up, so it's facing out the window, and this is oriented up. Now I can unplug it. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to stuff this up into the headliner. least try to. Something like that. We can do the same thing with our power cable. Okay, so over here, I'm going to use a couple zip ties, and I'm going to try to make sure that everything here is connected to the wiring that's already there. There were airbags here. We want to make sure we go behind the airbags. Cut the ends, make sure we're not cutting the cables, and whatever excess, we're just going to pull down back toward the fuse box. You put this trim back on. Every car is going to be different, but this one, just kind of shove it into the corner. Okay, so right here, I'm going to add a zip tie. The main reason for that is I don't want the wire pulling either direction, and just having zip ties on here is usually a good idea. So from here, there's a couple ways to do it. We can either take the wire, and we can stuff it into the trim, and literally just pull it back and push the wire in like that. So that's one way to do it. Nice, easy way to do it. From this point, that's probably how I'm going to do it. But the other way is you can just grab the trim and pull it down, and then put the trim back up with the wire. This would be a good point for using that, that little plastic pry bar. And then right here on this car, this is where I want to pull the trim back, just because I'm going to have a bunch of extra wire. I'm going to need a place to put it. And this guy can get kind of tricky because everything's got to line up just right. There we go. So make sure the seatbelt's still working because that's important. Okay, so now same thing, do some Windex. Now since I'm going to be able to move the camera up and down, that's not really going to be critical. The only important thing is we want to make sure that it's not crooked. So something like that. And if I can get it between these lines, that would be ideal. Peel that guy. There we go, put it low just so it is not interfering. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, I'm just going to put a loop in here and stick that in the headliner. And this is where we got all this extra wire. So if you've got a spot where you can zip tie this, great, do that. I don't, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to try to bundle this up as well as I can. Something like that. Put a zip tie on it. And then that is going to go behind this trim. Now, one of the reasons you don't want to necessarily do that is going to be because if there's any vibrations or anything like that, that's going to cause movement, so that's not going to be great. You don't want to do that if you can avoid it. But for me, that's just how I'm doing it. If you want to, we could actually just notch this out. It gives ourselves a spot for this wire to sit. There you go. Now a better way to do that would be to stick the wire inside this plastic and then run it down here. So that way it never has the possibility of getting pinched inside that door area. But I've ran things through here before. It takes a long time and it is really not worth it in my opinion. And just make sure you get all this weather seal wrapped around it because we don't want to have any leaks. So right now we got it kind of pointed toward the sky, so I'm going to move that down a little bit. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now you can see all the cameras. We can kind of adjust it if we need to, get that orientation just right. And press the button in the middle. We got our menu, dash cam, so if we hit that, it just goes right back to the dash cam. And we got playback. So this is the cool thing. We can actually watch each camera. So each camera has its own individual video. You're not just watching a split screen. So if you want to see the full thing, you can still do that. Pretty cool. You got voice control. Turn on screen. Cool. turn on screen, just like that. So right now it's off, right now it's on, and it's telling us what all the options are. So let's see, take photo, that's cool. Show front camera, go back, show front oh, yeah, there we go. So we are now looking at the front camera. I'm going to turn that off just so it doesn't take any commands. Dashboard. So this is where we can see how fast we're going. So that means this does have GPS in it. So if we're ever pulled over and they say we're going a certain amount of speed, we can actually verify that and we can take that to court. So that's a very good thing to have. Settings. So we got Wi-Fi. So if you want to connect this to your phone app, we can do that. IR LED. So if you want to turn off the LED on the front, we can do that. Loop record. So right now it's set to 3 minutes. So that means every video is going to be a 3-minute video. If we wanted to shorten that down, we can do that. G sensor, right now it's set to middle, so that is going to be if you're driving and somebody hits the car, it's going to automatically record and lock that video, so you're not going to lose that, so that's very good. Parking monitor, right now it's set to middle, so as long as this is hardwired in the way that we just did it, if your car gets hit, then it's going to automatically start recording, so that's a very good thing to have. Then we got a language, so we got English, Espanol, Portuguese. I have no idea what that is, I'm just going to leave it on English. Screensaver, so we can have it turn off in 1 minute, so if we don't want to have this bright screen on while we're driving, we can have that thing automatically shut off. We've got 1 minute, 3 minutes are off. I'm going to leave it off because I like being able to see it. Clock settings, the date and everything is already currently set how we want it, so that's good. Format card, so if we put in a new card, we can go ahead and reset that, and then reset to factory defaults. We also have GPS, so I really don't know what this is. I think this is showing all the different satellites, but it's cool it's got that information. Maybe somebody else can figure that part out. Speed adjust, so if you're driving and you notice that the speed on your speedometer is different than the speed on here, you can adjust that here. Speed units, so you can set it to miles per hour or kilometers per hour. Time zone, right now it's at GMT -5. And then daylight savings, I do need that on because in my state we have daylight savings time. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and drive and see what it looks like.